Hello again, Steve here with a bit of a follow-up for yesterday's video, which was about preparing a presentation for about 45 minutes to an hour for a conference that I was invited to do, asked if I'd do this breakout session for a group of people who are running these voluntary groups. And it has to do with membership in the groups, how to get people interested in joining the group and retaining those people, maintaining their interest or keeping their interest so that they would stay around. Now, I had done a similar event like this back in August, and this was a follow-up. Because of that, it was fairly easy to come up with the strategy in a way, which was to basically summarize what we had done before, ask if there's any questions on the summary, make sure that everybody in the group was up to speed with where we were at. And then I used a couple of stories. I used 3 stories actually to set the tune or the tone of what I wanted to talk about. The first story was one about somebody who cared. It was a demonstration of somebody who cared, and I talked about it, I think, in the last video, of how this lady, long after I had bought a car, sent me a key that she had found at the dealership. And my impression was she didn't have to do that, but I felt very important. And the next ones had to do with whether or not somebody really cares by their actions, whether they are open-minded to change, to satisfy the needs of somebody who might want to come to a group and join a group. The reason I told those stories is to set the tone and then to reconnect at the end when I summarized. Then I asked the question. So I made a little cheat sheet like this that I passed out to everybody, and basically I had an overview, and I just put a few notes on here, so it was something that they could go by, and it was something that I could refer to as well, just to be able to keep rolling without actually reading something very much, and to make it more natural, to make it more of a conversation. So just a few points. It's very few points. You know, that amount for an hour of discussion is very little, right? Overview. So I talked about the summer training review, the question and answer and comments. Where did we begin? And what have we done from what we learned? So we discussed certain things, got people engaged in the conversation of what it is that people come in there for, and how can we address those wants. And then I talked about a tune-up and used the analogy of how if we buy a car, right, every once in a while you might want to have it looked at by somebody. Let's have a look. Let's rotate the tires. Let's see how things are going. So we're working along this line of trying to improve our club. Let's look at it. Are we talking about those benefits? Are we continuing to talk about those benefits? Because people are coming in to visit and they're not staying, then obviously we're not. We talked about the observation of what we learned through that tune-up. We called that, referred to that in marketing jargon of a message to market match. Are we continuing to work on our message that we're putting out? Is it a match to those who are coming in to have a look? And if we're not matching, then they're probably turning around and going back out. But if it's a match, they feel like they came what they get. They got what they came for. Imagine yourself going into a store and finding great customer service, great product, the whole works. You want to tell people about it, you want to go back again when you need that product again, right? And then what we did is we did a case study with some role playing, which is what we did. We split the group in half, put half outside the door, half inside the door, and then pretended we were setting up for the meeting. The guests come in, and the people who are setting up pretend that they are, it was role playing. They're welcoming these people, and they're not just telling them about themselves and how small talk about the weather or whatever. They're asking them, they're genuinely interested in those people. Imagine when you go into a store and somebody it seems like at least, they're genuinely interested in you. And they genuinely seem to want to help. They want to find out what you want. They're not trying to pressure you into something. It's a genuine question. So if if this happens, then people have more of a tendency to open up and say what it is that they want. So the idea was to make note of those things that they wanted. And then we reversed the roles and did it again. So everybody had something on a piece of paper that said, here's what somebody wants. Now we did another role play, which was a discussion of that, which is to pretend that we're a mastermind group brainstorming on how we can improve our club, which could be a business as well, like a bunch of board of directors or whatever can get together, or some entrepreneurial partners get together and, hey, how can we improve our strategy based on what we found out from the customers or potential customers telling us what they want, not just us dreaming stuff up. So we wrote out on the board, each person, what was the key thing that you heard, and then as a group, what's a possible solution that we can come up with for this. And we got an idea. It wasn't to be completely informative. It wasn't to be completely conclusive. It wasn't to be this event, 1 hour is the panacea to all your troubles in life. No, the idea was to look at this in terms of a way of thinking. There's an old saying in marketing, the customer is always right. Now we know that that's not correct. Of course it's not correct. But it's a slogan to help us that if we want the customer to engage in our business, we better be willing to listen to what they're telling us. Because if we can never match what they're telling us, then they're going to go somewhere else, because somebody else is going to provide that, fill that void for them, right? Fill that product need for them. I think it was a great experience. It went off quite easily, and because it was interactive. And this is a certain way of doing a presentation which can be very helpful. It's not just me. It's not just like, I wasn't being like the guy at the other side of the customer service table who, if you go and ask them a question, it's all about a blah about them and our customer service and we this and we that. It's, let's have a conversation. Let's try to find out what it is that you want and see if we can provide that. And of course we agreed in the discussion that we can't be all things to everybody. That's true. No, absolutely not. You know, in a business you have to define what you want. I mean, if you're a hardware store and somebody comes in and wants their kitten neutered, I mean, obviously they got the right address, wrong address rather. That's probably next door at the veterinary clinic. Yeah, we don't do that. But if it's within the scope of what we do, and it's reasonable, and we didn't think about it, then my goodness, you know. But one example is I go to this club, and we meet in the basement of this old church. And there's a bunch of other organizations. The dance club meets there, it meets in another room, and there's the symphony orchestra sometimes meet, and sometimes the police dogs come in and train. It's a big old church, it's got all kinds of different things down in there. It's mostly just rented out for community events, right? And one of the problems is the door right upstairs from our meeting room is always locked after hours. So the only entrance is way at the other end of the building. It's like a labyrinth of hallways and stuff, and you got to go through the dance hall. There's people dancing and everything. So it's very difficult for guests to find us. So one day we were talking. It was a new guy. It's usually a new person who comes up with these ideas. He said, "Why don't we put a doorbell up at the main entrance?" We're all thinking, well, how can we put a doorbell? Don't we have to run a wire? No, of course not. There's wireless doorbells. They're like $20. Just put the doorbell on the desk here and find a way to hook a doorbell up at the top with a little sign on it, on the door. And we did that the last meeting. And with 10 minutes before, it's ding dong, there's somebody up there. And then ding dong, there are two guests who probably never would have been there. Simple solution. And people had told us that before. It's hard to find you guys. But we did it. I guess the whole message behind this is whenever we want people to be involved with us, whether it's finding a date, whether it's starting a business, whether it's looking for a job or whatever, we have to be willing to listen to what they want if we want them to be involved with what we're doing. Because people are, at the end of the day, they are self-centered. We're all, you know, we're mostly self-centered. We mostly selfish, like we have that motive for what's going on inside of us as a general baseline, typically. And it's important for us to remember that. Steve here again, great chatting. Talk again soon.